Hello and welcome back to another Bible reading.
Whoa.
Yes, we are in Mark chapter 6 today, and as we're going to see, the kingdom is going to keep pushing on.
That's the way it's designed to do. It never has a resting place.
Yeah, and so the gospel so far, if you go remember back in Mark chapter 5, was not accepted across the sea with the Gentiles. It's accepted by a few individuals who need Jesus. And that's
Yes.
a lot of times when people come to Jesus is because they feel a need for him.
And that's one of the things, I think, like Pentecost, for instance, until they had the need presented to them that they needed that crucified Jesus, nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, nothing was going to happen. And so now we're going to see right at the beginning of Mark chapter 6, I think it probably should have been a part of Mark chapter 5, thought, is that Jesus won't even be accepted in his own home. So don't think that just because he's going across the sea and he's being rejected, even in his own home. All right, so, all right, Mark chapter 6, verse 1, he went away from there and came to his hometown. Once again, he's still in his Galilean ministry. And his disciples followed him, and on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue. Many who heard him were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands?" And so, before we get in, one of the things that we're seeing is people are amazed.
They are. He's a local. He's a carpenter guy. What's up?
It's not like he's making claims that are unfounded either.
No.
The way he's teaching, the works that he's doing, all support his claims.
And guess what? Anybody can have this wisdom who takes it from the Bible. It doesn't matter what your credentials are, where you were born, or where you went to school. If you're getting it from God through the Scriptures, then you've got it.
Yeah. It's interesting, we're going to see this Galilean, him being rejected here, but even Acts 2, remember, aren't these Galileans?
Yes. Come on now. Yeah, right. That's prejudice.
Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary and brother of James and Joseph?
I guess.
And Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him, meaning, we know this guy.
Yeah. Who does he think he is?
Who do you think he is? It'd be like if my brother started...
You talking to me?
If my brother started going around talking about him being the
that's
Messiah.
exactly what you do.
I'm going to smack him. All right? I'm going to tag you in this one, too.
Give him a Will Smith.
Yeah. We're coming with a podcast with that.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and among his relatives in his own household." And I think that's true.
Yeah, so that's little whoever.
Yeah, they've had too many experiences with this person, normal experiences, for something abnormal to really, to work.
They were judging him based upon that rather than on what he was saying and doing.
Yeah, and so he could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them.
So he did do some mighty works there. It wasn't because he couldn't. It was because it wasn't appropriate because of the nature of the audience.
Yeah, the mighty works is like the calming of the seas and all those kinds of things. Once again, if it's not going to have any effect, Jesus doesn't just walk around displaying.
No, he's not a showman.
Just for, people to look. He's not a parlor trick guy.
No.
And he marveled because of their unbelief, and he went about among the villages teaching. So people are amazed at him. He's amazed at them. I mean, you're amazed at me, yet you won't accept me.
Yeah, how can you not accept this?
Yeah. So Jesus, he's going to call the 12, began to send them out, 2 by 2, gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He charged them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not put on 2 tunics. It kind of reminds you of the wilderness. Remember the wilderness, their clothes wouldn't wear out, their shoes wouldn't wear out, they were going to be provided for, and they didn't. And Jesus is being provided for.
And they're going to the homies, the people who are supposed to finance them, their family. When they get out with the Gentiles for the Great Commission, that's going to be modified a bit. But
take some stuff with you.
Take some stuff. But as John said, he came to his own, and his own received him not.
Yeah. So he said to them, "Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you depart from there." That's kind of, stay there until you leave. And if any place will not receive you, and they will not listen to you, when you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them. So they went out and proclaimed that people should repent, and they cast out many demons and anointed them with many who were sick and healed them. So we're seeing that the kingdom is going to be passed on to his apostles. We're kind of getting a miniature version of this. And, when it's really about the reception of the people.
It really is. That will determine how much preaching is going to be done. Because if nobody's going to listen, we need to go somewhere where they will.
Yeah, you go to a place and you realize the gospel ain't going here.
Mm-hmm.
There are towns, that I know of where there is a small church sitting in the middle of this town.
Mm-hmm.
It has been there for years. It even tries to reach out, but everybody there, it's not a place you move into. It's a place you normally move out of.
Mm-hmm.
But if you live there, your family has lived there for 300 years.
Yeah, so you're not open to change.
You're not open to change, and you may get one, maybe individual.
Awesome.
But I think those churches need to start thinking about bringing their ministry to some place that may be a little more fruitful.
We've been talking about here at Lenoir City that we're an outpost for our area, and those outposts are set up by the gospel beachheads, if you will. If there's a beachhead going to nowhere, we're just sitting on the beach.
Yeah, and you never want to be, worshiping together is one of the lesser commands, in my opinion.
Yes, that's kind of a means to an end to go out and do good work. So it's not, at least we're worshiping together. Well, that's not terrible, but we need to be realistic about what we're not able to do that we should be trying to able to do.
Yeah, if you're saying because we worship together we are a church, but if you're not serving your community and going out and doing good and being evangelizing and being a light.
Well, even if they don't respond,
we're
supposed to be doing it.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're going to get to John the Baptist kind of thrown right in the middle of this. So King Herod heard of it, for Jesus' name had become known. Some said John the Baptist has been raised from the dead. That is why these miracle powers are at work in him.
Interesting, because John never actually performed miracles himself.
Nope, not that we know of. But others said he's Elijah. And others said he's a prophet, like one of the prophets of old. Now, Matthew spent a lot of time on who do people say that I am, and we talked a lot about that. So we'll kind of leave that for Matthew. Mm-hmm. But when Herod heard of it, he said, John, whom I beheaded, has been raised? For it was Herod who had sent and seized John and bound him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because he had married her. For John had been saying to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. And Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted to put him to death, but she could not. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he kept him safe.
Okay. This guy's political side and his internal side, they're going to come to war with each other.
Well, and it's interesting, John and Jesus, there's a lot of times they escape death because of the fame they've made with the regular people. Mm-hmm. And I think if the church is going to ever succeed against political powers or powers that are over them, that if there is enough influence in a community, even though all these people may not be churchgoers, but they know, hey, these Christians are good people, that may become a hedge of protection around us.
Exactly. I think that you're exactly right. We're probably not going to convert some big political figure. And even if we did, there's only so much they can do anyway. It's the common person, the boots on the ground, the people who sway the influence of a community and cause, if you will, the streets to be safe to walk on and things like that.
Yeah. And no one really wants to put to death a righteous man.
No.
That was probably Pilate's issue.
Yes.
Putting to death Jesus.
Herod's struggling.
He's struggling. But an opportunity came, or when he heard them, he was greatly perplexed, and he had heard him gladly. But when an opportunity came, when Herod on his birthday gave a banquet for his nobles and
Herodias just laying in the weeds waiting.
Yeah, and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. Here's the Satan pouring around like a roaring lion. For when the Herodias' daughter came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guests.
Isn't that sick in itself?
Yeah, well.
But they're sick, so.
And the king said to the girl, ask me for whatever you wish, and I'll give it to you. Basically, you gave me the proper dance.
Mm-hmm. So it's yours.
Up to half the kingdom, as David would say. He vowed to her, whatever you ask me, I will give you up to half my kingdom. And she went out and said to her mother, for what should I ask? And she said, the head of the John the Baptist. Out of all the things.
Wow, how grisly is that?
Yeah. She came in immediately with haste to the king and asked, saying, I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And the king was exceedingly sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he did not want to break his word to her. What an honorable man.
Yeah. This is not being honorable, but that's how human beings work. They get themselves in a corner.
I made an oath.
Yeah.
Well, an oath, even when Jesus says make no oath, if you do make a rash oath, like I believe Jephthah's daughter,
Yeah.
You know, that was a rash oath. Whether you think he did it or didn't,
It's still a rash oath.
it's a rash oath. And I don't think God would have ever expected him, nor should he have ever killed his daughter.
No, I don't either.
Not to just to fulfill
But there were
some kind of
consequences
oath.
to the rash oath.
There is consequences. He should have suffered it, not his daughter. But-
Exactly.
all right. The king was exceedingly sorry, because of his oath. And immediately the king sent an executioner with orders, real sorry, then immediately, with orders to bring John's head. He went out, beheaded him in the prison, brought his head on a platter, gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother.
It's just,
Just to be able to see that and not to retch,
no.
right?
But they're happy.
And to be happy with that. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. Proper burial for him. I think it's your turn to read now.
The apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all they had done and taught. So they've gone out and he's commissioned them in a limited way, and now they're back and they want to talk to him about what they have experienced. This is a way of training them. And this says a lot about the church and training, doesn't it? We've got to let people try stuff.
Yeah.
They might not do as well as they do later. They won't, but they're never going to do well if they don't get a chance.
Yep.
So, and he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a secluded place. Rest for a while." There's a time for rest. For there were many people coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. They went away in a boat to a secluded place by themselves. And the people saw them going, and many recognized them and ran there together on foot from all the cities. He got there ahead of him. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd. He felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. When he was ready, quite late, his disciples came to him and said, "This place is desolate, and it's already quite late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages, buy themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "Shall we go and spend 200 denarii, that's 200 days' wages, on bread and give them something to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go look." When they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. He commanded them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. They sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s, a bunch of people. And he took 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves. He kept giving them to the disciples to set before them, and he divided up the 2 fish among them all. And they ate and were satisfied. And they picked up 12 full baskets of the broken pieces and also the fish. There were 5,000 men who ate the loaves. Let's pause there a minute and kind of reflect.
Well, I find this interesting that Jesus sent them out. They were supposed to rely upon the blessings of others. They were going to people's homes, and they were being fed this whole time.
Yes.
They're coming back. These crowds that appearing probably were the ones feeding the apostles, because they're following the apostles after their teaching, now are out with Jesus all day. Jesus sees them like sheep without a shepherd. He has compassion on them. And now he's turning back over to the apostles. Now you feed them.
Yeah, you reverse it.
They fed you, or you have been fed, whether it's the same crowd or not, doesn't really matter. But they have been being fed by others. Now you be fed, and ultimately, who's the one who nourishes everybody?
Jesus.
It's Jesus. And so you're getting little displays of community and family.
You are.
And the fact that Jesus is the true nourisher, but there are times where we need to be there for each other.
We've got his teachings that he does, which the ultimate nourishment. But we've also got, there's practical everyday stuff going on all the while.
Yeah, and ultimately, once again, the teaching becomes the biggest deal. Why did they come out? They heard teaching. Jesus went to them, and I love the paradox of the fact that they were just exhausted. They needed time to rest. Jesus needed time to rest. Matthew's version, he was out all day as well. He wasn't just sent them out and was sitting and waiting.
He's doing stuff.
He was doing stuff. He was exhausted. And yet, he sees people like sheep without a shepherd. He says, this is a time, no matter how tired I am, no matter how inconvenient it is for me, the kingdom needs to be displayed.
It's not always about convenience, is it?
Oh, no. If you wait for a convenient time to serve the Lord,
You'll be waiting a long time.
You will be waiting a long time. You got to make time. And I think we talk about that a lot. You make time for the things you want to do.
If Herodias can be looking for the right time, surely God's people can be
waiting for that opportunity.
Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of Bethsaida, while he himself was standing with the crowd away from the crowd, and bidding them farewell. He left for the mountain to pray. That's one of his places he goes, a mountain. When it was evening, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, at about the fourth watch of the night, came to them walking on the sea. And he intended to pass them, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed that it was a ghost, a spirit. They cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke with them and said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them. The wind stopped. They were utterly astonished, for they had not gained any insight from the incident of the loaves, but their heart was hardened. Okay, what we got going on here?
I just, this entire, every time Jesus feeds, John 6 kind of brings this out the most.
Yes.
The feeding does nothing for them spiritually. It does not sink in to the crowds. It barely sinks into the disciples. Peter does get away with saying, hey, we have nowhere else to go. Mm-hmm. But we're getting this from this understanding that Mark 6, they learn nothing from that lesson.
Oh, they wanted, we get to John, but just quickie. They wanted to take him by force and make him a king because he's feeding them, not because he's teaching them, not because he's the Messiah.
They can, this is what he can provide for me.
Mm-hmm. What you got for me?
And, here he's walking on the water. Once again, they're terrified. The moment he's gone for a minute, what happens?
They get terrified.
Well, it reminds you of like when Moses is leading the people up to the mountain and he goes away.
Oh, man.
What happens to the people?
It goes bad.
It goes real bad. And so, once again, the thing we're supposed to understand is this take heart or of courage. It is I.
Be of good courage. Yes.
Do not be afraid.
And in John, when he's saying goodbye, he brings that kind of stuff up again.
Yeah.
Lets them know in the world they'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer, take courage, for I've overcome the world. So it doesn't matter if he's over yonder on a mountain or up there with the Father or wherever. We've still got access to him.
Yeah. And ultimately he's going to say, lo, I am with you always.
Mm-hmm. Even to the end of the age.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When they crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret, and they moored to the shore. They got out of the boat immediately. The people recognized him and ran about the whole country and began to carry here and there on their pallets those who were sick and placed them. Where am I? I've lost myself.
55.
Okay. Wherever he entered villages or cities or countryside, they were laying the sick in the marketplaces and imploring him that they might just touch the fringe of his cloak. So as you said, this is something that happens from time to time. And as many as touched it were being cured. As many as touched it were being cured.
Any person who, through faith, and that's one of the things that we pick up on, Jesus realized it wasn't just people who were bumping into him, because they were in the crowd.
Accidentally or anything, like at the mall or something.
But it was
you're here.
Purposeful touched.
Yes.
They came to Jesus for healing. They came to Jesus for cleansing. Trusting him. And when they touched even his garment, they were made well. And so there are once again, we talked about this before in yesterday's video, there are very few items under the Old Testament that can make unclean things clean.
Yes, very few.
The altar, God's presence, the blood. Those are kinds of things. And so Jesus is a special kind of person.
Yes.
If he can go out touching unclean people and unclean things and make them well. And without himself being unclean.
And guess what? In the sense that matters most, spiritual well-being, eternal life, he's still doing that today.
Yeah. And so as the kingdom is progressing, what you're going to see is the distinguishing between fear and faith, and that are you willing to come to Jesus fully trusting him no matter what the crowds around you are doing?
Yes.
Like the synagogue leader we talked about yesterday.
Yes, he's bucking the system.
I mean, as a Pharisee or if the Pharisees would have heard about that, what are you doing?
Come on, this guy's a blasphemer, stop it.
Yeah, but once again, if you need Jesus and you know you need Jesus, nothing's going to stop you.
That's it. Is he the most important thing? If he's not, you'll find something else that is. If he is, you won't.
Absolutely. So there is Mark chapter 6. We hope you have a great day. We love you.
Bye-bye.
And God bless.